Good afternoon, everybody. It's Tuesday. First of all, I want to thank you, Ben Nicholls, Chief Nicholls, Division Chief for Sonoma Lake Napa CAL FIRE. And, it's been quite a week. You've been running lead on incident command and operations for the Point Fire. We have a incident map right here we're going to go over. But what a difference a week makes. I think the first thing is we're sitting here and there's drops falling. We have a little bit of rain, a little bit of summer rain. We have a potential projection of lightning strikes up in this area, which would not be something that we love.
No.
But behind us in the background, we have really the main kind of view area of the Point Fire. A lot of the area of the Point Fire that can't be seen from the road is really tucked into these canyons back here. We have a couple structures we've lost up here, unfortunately. But let's start with the incident map. The day started with, or even last night, talking about 100% containment.
Sure.
So even though there's a couple of red spots on this map, these are actually black now,
Correct.
You said before we started. But Ben, can you just take us through a little bit and a high level of the incident, where we stand right now?
Sure. So as of today, as you mentioned, the fire is 100% contained. So that means that the fire is not a threat to expand at this point. So we've been working this hard for the last 3-4 days, really getting interior in these 1,200 acres that we've got in this really steep, inaccessible terrain, with the resources hunting out the hot spots that are remaining. Because as we get deeper in the burn, you can see some portions where the fire burned under the overstory of the trees, so the trees are still intact. And so on a fire control side, we call that a dirty burn. So there was a lot of residual fuel left as that fire burned through. But long term, that's a more resilient forest now because we haven't had a stand replacing fire. So those trees will recover and come back, as opposed to other portions of the fire where we had that heavier brush component and denser fuels where we did have a replacement of those fuels. And so those will come back over time.
Okay.
But those resources have been working hard, so they've now hit that so that the infrared flight that was conducted last night resulted in 5 hot spots within the overall 1,200 acres of this fire. So we'll have 2 engines and a pickup with a slip-in tank unit assigned to the fire for the next 3 days to continue not only hunting those 5 hot spots that were identified, but anything else that may pop up and or answer any questions or assist homeowners as they get reestablished up here on the hills.
So when we look at this map, and if we can come in here real quickly, here's your 1,200 acres. We see the dark black lines. As we said, these red lines are actually, you have these kind of teeth coming off of it. That shows where the fire still is. Isn't that correct when you're watching an active incident?
Correct. So the teeth point back into the burned area, and the solid red is your flaming front as it's advancing.
And then what you have here is also, in a way, since all these lines, these dozers and hand lines have been done not only around this area, but also in some of these other sections where it could have potentially grown into. Those are going to be helpful as we go into not just later in this season, but future seasons. Anytime you're able to get good lines, do good work, whether it's during an active fire or when we're just doing veg management and other things, it helps for the infrastructure. Is that right?
Absolutely. So during this fire, we actually have the wall bridge lines to the south of this fire and even onto the backside of Merlot Lake. And so there was a potential to reopen those and use those for this fire. Luckily, we didn't have to.
Yeah.
But to your point, it just continues that network of ridgetop fuel breaks that we have to be able to aid not only in future wildfire events, but absolutely, to your point, with the absolutely necessary prescribed fire work that we've got to do.
When I was up here in a helicopter, I think you were on the same day. It was maybe 3 or 4 days ago. It was really impressive to see the ridgetop fire breaks that were there before, but also the dozers that widened those out.
Sure.
It was really impressive to see where the retardant had slowed things down. It was really impressive to see where the hand crews had done their work. I mean, from up above, it actually, 5 days into the fire, kind of looked to me like it was a large controlled burn because it had such strong lines, defense lines around it, the way it had been contained. Part of what you said you all did originally, and this came out of our experience with the Tubbs fire and others, in that experience in 2017, was this all-call surge that you do with local assets. So you as CAL FIRE, you have the mutual aid system that deploys through CAL FIRE, but you also have a single tone. You can work with the operations head, Mark Hine in this case, here with Sonoma County Fire District, and any person or asset or resource, when you do that all call and that tone goes out, everybody can respond. And you as an incident commander, as I saw you, is you're sitting there going, okay, which resources do I have that are reporting? Where do I send you? Where do we do this? And as you kind of said, is that that's really an opportunity for you to attack when it's really needed, right in the beginning, to do as much as you can before it gets too big. Any reflections on how that worked and what the success of it?
Yeah, so that afternoon was just another great example of that close partnership that we have with our local government partners here in the county. You know, the fire was first reported just before 12:30 that afternoon, and as you can see on the map, it was almost contained. The Air Attack's initial report was they believed that there was a potential for 50 acres based on the fire conditions at the time, topography, and the resources we had. But unfortunately, the wind picked up in the afternoon, and that created spot fires out in front of the control lines that were being pushed in. The X's that you see on the map, those are bulldozer lines, and so you can see where that bulldozer was trying to hook that right flank of the fire, and it came out. And so basically, once that wind got established and those spots were starting to advance out in front of the main body of the fire, we had a rapid propagation of fire across that landscape.
Tough terrain in here too. Let's be real.
Super
high, low, high, low.
Yep.
You can't, you know, I mean, there are certain areas where you, as somebody who's drawing lines on a map that you want to contain, you're like, I can't get in there and do that, right?
And so this division break here along Pena Creek is there because you can't get there from here. This terrain is super steep, and you can almost throw a rock across it, but you can't drive across it because of that terrain. And so that created issues for access getting along the edges of the fire here. And about 4 o'clock, Henry 1 was in the proximity of the fire, and they were able to see back underneath the column of smoke and let us know that we had structures out in front of that main body of fire that were going to be impacted in short order. And so that was what created the conversation about putting out the all call, with the idea that we had a mass of structures out in front of the main body of fire.
You need those folks to come in and do property protection.
Correct.
You did an evacuation really quickly with incident command and everyone agreed. You got everybody out of the area. But if you get everybody out of the area, then you have the resources that aren't going to do the wildland stuff, but they can go and pull up next to a structure and defend that. Is that right?
Well, and so it's a combination of things, and thank you for bringing up the evacuation part, because it's absolutely critical. That the sheriff's office was really great. They responded to the incident command post. They established themselves early on, and so we started with an evacuation warning down to the Stang Road area. However, as that fire continued to advance, then we blew out an entire evacuation zone under an order to be able to get those folks out. And so they were able to get those landowners out before the fire impacted that area. And in the meantime, in coordination or in conversations with Chief Hine and the REDCOM duty officer, we were able to get those resources engaged, which at that point, there was the initial attack resources that were already at the fire from Cloverdale, Healdsburg, Northern Sonoma County fire. And then the all-call created the opportunity, or it gave us 28 additional engines with 3 water tenders and 10 overhead. And so the overhead component with that rapidly expanding incident allowed us to break out this front country here into 3 new divisions to be able to coordinate those resources, working for the Yoakum structure group, and it absolutely helped the ultimate outcome of the fire. And so that structure defense that evening, as that fire laid down right around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, that structure defense transitioned from protecting that structure to basically connecting the dots on perimeter control. So each of those engines at those houses now could lay hose, what we call a hose lay, between those houses and start connecting the dots so that the fire line was contained above those structures.
Just from your perspective, just some final thoughts on people who think, oh gosh, this worries me. The start of the fire season started early. What does this mean for our year? Any advice to folks in the coming months?
So for the advice for all of our residents here in the county and across the state, it's absolutely critical that they put in that defensible space around their homes. Do what they can to home harden, but defensible space is so key. Driving through the fire area and the area surrounding,
Right up here.
Here in the North County, there are still way too many homes that don't have that basic defensible space put in. And so the idea being is that if there's not the defense at that home that's already supposed to be there, we struggle to bring that offense when we have a resource, when we're trying to get those engines into that area to affect those structured defense tactics. And so it's absolutely critical. Do your work. You've got to do your work so that you provide the defense, we'll provide the offense.
I think a great reminder too is that there's notifications that go out that are for fire weather watch, which is a precursor to a red flag warning. That's when there's anticipated winds, anticipated high temperatures, low humidity, but that is usually the fire weather watches will come as like a notification, almost a warning that a red flag could potentially be here. Sometimes it goes straight into a red flag warning. It's a reminder, don't do anything on your properties during a red flag warning, like have mowers out, weed whackers. You don't want to start a fire during a red flag warning. That means when you have a nice day, like we have today, with good humidity, rain falling, clean your gutters, defensible space, make sure you have a plan. You're part of the solution. Eric, who was working with you on the first day, took me out and he said that when they do structure defense, there's like 3 kind of areas that they look at to see if it's really defensible, very well defensible, medium, or basically it's like going to be very hard to defend that property. And they have to make decisions when they're out there doing structure defense on if you didn't do the prep work around your house, on if it's worth it for them to go try and save 5 other structures that are already prepared to be defended easily, or if they're going to spend all their resources and time on somebody who didn't do defensible space. So you're a part of the solution. We're going to have a year. We'll see it. We'll see what we have. But I just want to thank you. We know you're there. We know our emergency management is here. We know if there's fires across the state, we got great locals doing it. We know we have mutual aid, but mutual aid gets strained if there's a lot of concurrent fires. But just appreciate you. Thank you very much for what you do. Thank everybody. Just a lot of confidence for what has gone so differently from 2017 forward. The degree of cooperation, coordination, the tools, the evacuation zones, the alert and warning systems, all these things that put us in a potential to respond in a very professional, efficient way. And then the deciding factor is what you do each and every day in your own home and having a plan. So,
Absolutely.
thank you, man.
You bet.
Yeah.